Hello, and welcome to episode 33 here on the Air Hug Community. Hey, welcome to the Air Hug Community. I am Judy Arizosa, your host, and I created the Air Hug Community to bring you stories from guests and myself that ultimately help improve the lives of others and boomerang back to improve your life. So we cover all sorts of topics like relationships and personal development, how you see the world, and just behaviors that actually affect yourself and others. So strap in, sit down, welcome, and thank you so much for joining in. Okay, so in spite of the name, no nudity was involved in the recording or making of this podcast. Okay, so as you know, the Air Hug Community and Grateful Fitness are dedicated to helping women use worthiness, sweat equity, and sustainable nutrition to achieve and maintain optimal health, right? So, speaking of worthiness, a significant factor in living healthy comes from our perspectives and our beliefs, not just on worthiness, but also on our emotional well-being and our attitudes on loving ourselves and believing in ourselves to have the ability to do the hard things. And so our topic today is about getting in touch with our internal thoughts and beliefs through a branch of ecotherapy called forest bathing. So as I said, it does not involve nudity or the use of swimsuits. All right, welcome everybody to the Air Hug Community. Today we have a really interesting guest. Her name is Deb Denome. And we are talking today about forest bathing and also about horticultural therapy. So Deb, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in both of these practices.
Thank you, Judy. Yeah, so about 25 years ago, I was working in corporate training and education. I actually loved my job and what I was doing, but I had an infant daughter who at 6 months was diagnosed with cancer, and she's good now. But there was 4 of my peers there who were also dealing with family members, either parents or children, who were dealing with life-threatening illnesses. And we started retreating and meeting and saying, how could we develop our education and training skills to something closer to our hearts and our homes that would affect the health of our families, of our communities, and of the earth? And we ended up deciding to start an organic community farm in South Bristol, New York, which is still here, called Shimmering Light Farm. And we started attracting all sorts of people who wanted to be part of the farm and dealing with lots of different life issues. And a long story, but we got connected with a number of mothers and their children who were recovering from domestic violence. And I started to feel a little out of my element as just an educator, teaching how to connect with growing healthy food and healthy herbs and the earth, and became a horticultural therapist. So I did that for about 15, I still do that, but for about 15 years before I hurt my back and was in recovery for about 9 months. And then literally forest therapy came across my screen one day as I was taking it easy. And forest therapy and horticultural therapy are under this umbrella of ecotherapy, which is, canine therapy is under there and equine therapy is under there and other therapies, ways to connect with what we call the other than human world for our health and well-being. So in forest therapy, it was a lot easier on my body. There's no lugging wheelbarrows and straw bales and lots of compost. You can just walk through the woods. And yeah, we can even take people in wheelchairs through the woods. So it's very accessible to pretty much everybody.
That's really neat. So I'm glad you kind of painted the umbrella for us. So you have the ecotherapy and then just different disciplines under it. So, okay, when I first heard forest therapy, I thought you had to get naked. So can you help me with that?
Yeah, because it's really known in the US as forest bathing. And people think, what's going on? Do I need to have a swimsuit? Yeah, no, fully clothed. The name forest bathing came from where this was developed in Japan, and they call it Shinjin Yoku, and which most closely translates to English in bathing in the atmosphere of the forest or immersing in the atmosphere of the forest. And so that's where forest bathing comes in, which is
Okay.
known as forest therapy. But yep, fully clothed, you're good to go. And yeah, so Shinrin Yoku is SHINRIN-YOKU.
Okay. Put that
And
in the show notes.
okay, yeah, it's, really an ancient practice resurfacing in a new way, because as humans, we evolved in the forest, if you believe in evolution. And for millions and millions and millions of years, we lived in the forest, and our DNA has all this genetic memory of living in the forest. And in evolutionary scale, it's only been like the last 2 hours that we have lived in civilized, cities, and really the last 5 minutes that we have been mostly living indoors. So maybe like the last 100 to 150 years, that people are not working outside as much and living outside as much. So
And we can survive inside, but is it really the best thing for us?
yeah, it's like there's all these benefits because we've kind of forgotten that we are part of nature, an inextricable part of nature. And, we can look out our window and say that's nature out there. But we really need nature, and nature needs us. We're in an interdependent, reciprocal relationship. Absolutely everything that we use in our everyday life comes from nature, and the air that we breathe, the trees make it. Oxygen and the water, as far as we know, the water that's on the earth has been here for 4.3 billion years. And, that I used for my shower this morning and my tea. And it's just kind of miraculous to think about it. And our houses are built out of wood and stone, and everything we use. My mug is made out of clay, and my, window that I get to see the outdoors and protects me from everything is made out of, you know, crystals, basically, minerals from deep in the earth. So we forget that we're using the earth's resources, and we wouldn't be able to do anything that we're able to do without the earth. And since we have forgotten so much of that connection, all this kind of suffering has ensued of environmental crises, of us just taking more from the earth, and even health crises. The pandemic really is believed by scientists to be started in this imbalance in nature, between nature and animals, and these viruses starting because the animal habitats are not healthy anymore. So
That's an interesting perspective, and I did not even think about that. But a virus taking over the world, having to do with an animal habitat.
Yeah, so one of the fascinating things, the Japanese have done 30 years of research on reconnecting us with our habitat. And the reason they got interested in it is because in the 1980s, they had this incredible stress epidemic called death by work, where a lot of people were taking their own lives due to the level of stress. And they said, we have to do something to help. And this reconnection with nature is one of the number one ways they help. And the World Health Organization has said that stress is the number one health epidemic of the 21st century. And, as we know, it underlies so many other illnesses, both mental illnesses and physical illnesses that stress creates. So in Japan, to go on a forest bathing walk, you would check in at a med station and get all these different vitals taken. In many cases, they would take your blood and your urine and check your hormones and all sorts of things. And at the beginning, at the end, and they have found these dramatic benefits on our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, and all aspects of us are benefited. And people also end up feeling more a sense of belonging, that we belong here on Earth and that we belong to something greater than
Greater than, yeah,
Mhm.
our four walls. So what happened with the suicide rate in Japan? Did it help?
Oh, it helped dramatically, yeah. And it's estimated that like 25% of the Japanese population goes out on the weekends. They have these forest therapy trails all over the country. They have forest therapy guides, which I am, and there's thousands of us in the world. And but there's forest medicine doctors there. It's a whole field of practice to forest medicine, and it's fascinating, and that's spreading around the world as well.
Wow. And so it's really,
Korea now, you can go on a forest bathing walk. It's integrated with the healthcare system. And that's our goal worldwide, is to get it integrated in the health system as preventative medicine and covered by insurance. But in Korea, for example, they've really taken off with it. And you can take forest bathing for expectant mothers, forest bathing for school bullies, forest bathing for recovering from heart disease. It's just integrated.
wow.
Mhm.
That's so interesting. Like, how about forest bathing for self-confidence, forest bathing for menopausal women? It's I'm
Absolutely helps
very selfish about that
everybody.
here.
It helps everybody, as well, menopause is a good example. Your life changes so dramatically. You feel so different. It's like, who am I? What's going on? But we have the same relationship with the earth. We can deepen this relationship and throughout the entire course of our lives and feel more and more connected and more empowered and supported. And that's the thing, when we come into awareness of how much the earth is supporting us, uh, you know, it's empowering. It's just like, wow. It's almost like the earth is conspiring to bless us every day with, everything that we need. And it's just our awareness of it. Like,
Yeah, I think we have to slow down, and we've been talking about slowing down quite a bit.
Mhm.
Um, and being open to just realizing the signs are there.
Yeah. So the actual practice of forest bathing involves really two things: slowing way down, walking slowly, and tuning into our senses. So we're not out for a hike, we're not getting our heart rate up, we're not out for a naturalist walk where we're learning the names of plants and animals. Those are wonderful things to do, but that's not what forest bathing is. So we're just slowing way down, and we give a series of invitations, which are inviting people to tune in to their surroundings in a very sense-based way, with our sight and our smell and our touch and our feeling, and eventually even going into our intuition, our imagination, which are other senses that we have. They're not just our five senses.
Mhm.
Some people think there's 12 or more senses. So eventually the invitations are about 10 to 15 minutes each, and people go off and experience them on their own. And then we come back into and gather up in a circle, and we each just share something that we're noticing. And since we all notice different things, our awareness expands dramatically about what's going on around us. And we're drawn more into this present moment of like awe and wonder of all the amazing little things that are going on when we slow down. And somebody may notice a spider spinning its web and sit there for 10 or 15 minutes and get this huge life insight. And that's the magical thing that starts happening, as people slow down and come into the moment and into presence. Everybody starts getting different messages, and they could be the tiniest little thing or they could be a big profound thing, but it's like metaphors for your life start showing up in
Mm.
nature. It's really magical.
It is really interesting, especially the part of just experiencing it and slowing down. I love that you call these invitations.
And they're invitations because they're just that. If something that's suggested doesn't resonate with you, you're invited to just find something else in the woods or wherever you are that you want to explore, that seems interesting or pleasing. It's really oriented towards pleasure. and which means that people have to feel safe. So these walks are usually done on pretty flat, well-maintained trails. We're moving slowly, and nobody has to worry about keeping up or tripping over something, or
Mhm.
we're trying to allow ourselves to sink into the moment without worrying about our safety, because we can switch into our out of our fight and flight and into our rest and digest nervous system if we're
Mhm.
feeling safe and supported, and pleasure is really a part of that, and awe and wonder. And as we slow down, humans move faster than most of nature. So as we slow down our walking and our movement, or even sit still for 10 or 15 minutes, we start noticing so many like whole other worlds that are going on around us that we usually walk right by.
Yeah, tell me, which reminds me, because we talked about this offline. Tell me about how when you were becoming, is this having to do with you becoming certified? You had to go
Mm-hmm.
outside to the same spot for 20 minutes a day for how long?
6 months. Yeah, so that's called sit spot, and that is kind of a standard practice, not just in forest bathing, but nature connection in general. And finding a spot to sit in nature, the same place as often as you can get there. And what happens if you go and sit still in the same spot for about 20 minutes, after a week or so, the other than human beings who live around there start getting used to you, and they just start going about their regular daily activities. And it's amazing what you can notice and what you never noticed before. So, yeah, as I shared with you, I picked my pond, which I can see out my window right now. It's very close because I knew I would actually go there every day versus someplace farther. And I think I know my pond pretty well. I watch it out my window. But as I sat there close up and personal, I was just amazed at how much life is going on and how many creatures come and drink from the pond and live by the pond. And some days it literally felt like a Walt Disney movie or something of just all this beauty that's going on in life at
Wow.
the pond. And it really doesn't take that long for them to get used to you and to, start just doing their normal thing.
That's pretty interesting. So they're already aware.
Hmm.
I feel like we have so much we can learn from them, but I'm guessing they're realizing that you're not a threat. You're just
Hmm.
you've become part of the environment.
Yeah. And I
That's
I don't hunt, but I have a friend who's a hunter. He's like, that's why I go out and sit in the woods. I don't shoot anything. I go and sit in my hunting stand, and I get to sit there and observe, and they don't know that I'm there, and just watch all this wildlife and amazing, happenings going on.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. Wow. So, what are you excited about these days? I know you mentioned something before we got on.
There is, so much going on in the field of forest therapy. One of the things I'm working on this week is developing a program for veterans that will be delivered very soon in the next couple of weeks. And so, forest therapy is super helpful for, as I mentioned, all different aspects of our mental and physical health. But there's been research specifically with PTSD and other issues that many veterans face. And and then, I mean, all different groups of people. I've been doing a lot of work with the Breast Cancer Coalition because this is something that is part of forest bathing, which is something we can all access anytime. But there's this study of the aerosols that trees emit, and they're called phytoncides. Um, we were joking about this earlier. Fight insides. It's like they're fighting inside our body, but they are creating natural killer cells in our bodies that help to fight illness and disease. And they're actually PHYTONCIDE phytoncides.
Wait inside.
And it's pretty new area of research. I mean, really just starting to understand all the gifts that the trees give us besides oxygen, but they're antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, and they help not only us, but all the other animals and inhabitants of the forests and the earth. And really as we lose so many trees on the earth, it's part of the imbalance that's happening is all these chemicals that we weren't even aware of that help us stay healthy and help the animals stay healthy, aren't there as much. So,
It's kind of like a natural immune situation.
oh, totally. A natural immune
Yeah.
booster. And right now in the winter here in Western New York, there's the leaves are off the trees, but the evergreens, all the pines and the cedars and the junipers and spruces, they have a very high percentage of these phytoncides. And I don't know about you, but I know when I like walk through a pine forest and smell all those pine needles, it's
Mm.
my whole life it's been an amazing experience. I like to just lay down in them and to realize that they're actually boosting the natural killer cells in our body is pretty miraculous.
Yeah, it's more than just smelling good. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the smell of pine. I had a candle that someone gave me this past holiday season, and it was loaded with pine needles.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know if that gave the same effect or not, but just you could smell like it didn't smell like those fake candles.
Yeah,
It
right. No, that
smelled
does
like
have
a
the same
fresh
effect.
cut tree. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's it's amazing, and I feel like that may be a reason why people throughout history have brought in boughs of evergreens, throughout time, and brought nature inside when they weren't spending as much time outside in the winter.
Yeah. Maybe that's it. It's really fascinating. So it's making me actually want to go outside for a walk. And I don't
Yeah.
know if I could do 20 minutes a day sitting in the same spot for 6 months, but
Well, you could start with 5 minutes a day. You could start with anything you feel like you could do. And
that would be even 5 minutes a day without my phone and quiet. That would be kind of fun.
yeah, you'd be amazed at what you start noticing. Mhm.
Wow. This is so fascinating. I want to thank you so much for enlightening us. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so my business is Finger Lakes Forest Therapy, also known as Finger Lakes Forest Immersion. And we serve the Western Finger Lakes area, and we're on Facebook and Instagram, and we have a website. And then, since I'm certified through the International Association of Nature and Forest Therapy, and also now through GIFT, which is the Global Institute of Forest Therapy, they both have websites with maps of where you can find guides. There's thousands of guides throughout the world now.
Okay,
And
so for anyone who's not in the Finger Lakes region of New York, you can still find something in your neck of the woods, literally.
Mhm. Yeah, and not everybody is on the maps because you kind of have to pay a certain amount to be on the maps. So you can do, your internet search for forest bathing or forest therapy. And I just want to also say that we're like not forest therapists. It's really nature and the forest who is the therapist. And the guide is just opening the door with these invitations that help us slow down and come into the present moment and remember how we are part of nature. And,
Oh, that's an important distinction to understand. Thank you. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
You're
so
more just sort of like connecting us with nature. And
right,
nature
because
is just the
nature,
therapist.
I don't know what people need, but nature meets people right where they are. So it's so fascinating to see the messages people get on walks from nature and how they're all so different because nature really great meets us where we are. People receive what they're ready to see or hear or intuit or whatever. And sometimes the messages are super super profound, and sometimes they're the tiniest little gem that somebody gets that really changes things for them.
Can
And what
really change
I've
your day.
found, I think Jacques Cousteau had the famous quote of like, people protect what they love. And as people get more connected, whether it's through horticultural therapy in gardens or forest therapy in the forest, we start loving nature more. We can't help it. It's like this amazing remembering, really, because it's in our DNA. And then we find that people, start taking care of nature better and become more interested in what they can do to, improve their own neighborhood or land or get involved with something. And I think it was the U of R that did some research about how nature connection makes people more generous and connected versus more concerned with self issues like fame or gain.
It's interesting. So the U of R, for anyone who's not from around here, is the University of Rochester
Mhm.
in Rochester, New York. Can you
Mhm.
say that again? Nature?
Yeah, so nature connection makes people more generous, both towards the earth and towards other people, and less interested in personal interests like fame or gain. Hmm.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Yeah, because we're all reliant on this habitat, and we're the only species that, destroys our habitat. So as we connect, we remember more what nature is giving us and providing us everything that we need. And we feel the support. And when you're feeling that support, the gratitude comes up like, yeah, we couldn't live without the sun coming up every day and the water and the air and the soil and animals and
All of this. That actually kind of makes me interested. I've been reading a little bit more or just becoming more aware of regenerative farming.
yeah.
It strips topsoil, but
Hmm.
maybe that would be another great topic
Yeah, we
to
actually
get
practice
into.
that on our farm. That would be a great topic. Mhm.
You actually say that again?
Practice regenerative farming on
Oh,
our.
you do.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I would like to talk to you more about that another time and see if maybe maybe we'll have you on again.
That would be
So,
fantastic. Yeah,
yeah, thank you
lots of good
so
stuff.
much.
Thank you for having me. Getting
Yeah, I am super
forest
excited
bathing.
about this, and
Mhm.
I'm going to approach my walks differently. So, I like
Sweet.
this.
Yeah,
And
give
maybe,
yourself some invitations. When you're out and about, maybe, notice all the shades of green you can notice, or feel the bark on all the trees, or notice where the animal homes are, the nests and the burrows, and notice where might be a fun nest for you to sit, where you feel supported and protected and peaceful.
I like that. Yeah. Very quickly. That reminded me of Girl Scouts when we had to make our sit-upons
Oh, yes.
shaded myself, right? Because then we would have something to sit upon, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I always
anyways,
tell people just take like a reusable grocery bag or something or whatever, and just don't make it a big deal. Just be
yeah,
comfortable.
keep it simple. All right. Thank you so much. This has been
Thanks.
super enlightening. Well, I hope you were as inspired as I was about how we can actually use nature to help us improve our health and well-being from the inside out. Because remember, a big part of improving our health and fitness is what's going on between our ears and our insight as to our attitudes, our beliefs, and our behaviors. And of course, there's always the other two pillars, which are sweat equity and sustainable nutrition. But today we were working from the inside out. And so I hope this spoke to you. And if it did, thank you very much for listening. And I'll thank you in advance for taking a screenshot and sharing this on your social media. And also do us a favor so that we can keep the Air Hug community going strong. Write a review on Apple and leave a 5-star rating. It goes so much for Apple to actually take us seriously and make us findable.